Okay, I gotta play it once.
Send in the clowns.
Alright, let's dive right into Taxi Driver. I mean, the king of comedy. I mean, Falling Down. I mean, Fight Club. I mean, Nightcrawler. I mean, the season 5 finale of House. No, seriously, let's talk about Joker here. Apologies for this being a week behind the hype train because I missed the opening weekend of Joker because I was out in the West Coast for work-related things and was not able to take in a screening, but I finally was able to see the film last night. I figured, you know what, this is worth talking about a little bit because of, frankly, a lot of the hoopla that is surrounding this particular film. When it comes to the controversy surrounding this film, I'm of the mindset that a lot of parties whip this up into a whole lot of nothing. I'm gonna concede that the media went about approaching the problematic aspects of this movie in a very Chicken Little mindset of the sky is falling. Second of all, Todd Phillips needs to just talk about his movie and nothing else, and not talk about how he's this downtrodden hero of the common folk who can't continue his punch down ideas of comedy in the woke culture. Just shut up and talk about the merits of your movie on its own as opposed to trying to correlate it. Don't get me wrong, I liked Old School. I still get a chuckle out of it every once in a while, but it seriously is a dated type of film. I liked Road Trip the one time I saw it for some reason because I was an immature kid. I never got into the Hangover movies. That's pretty much where he kind of lost me for a while. And now we're here trying to put this director's whole body of work into a modern filter, and he's not helping things by kind of forcing us to put his body of work into a modern filter with his kind of tone-deaf statements when it comes to anything other than the actual movie. When one of your actors from the film, Mark Maron, makes a better case for why you should probably resign some of your opinions for yourself and grow up a little bit, checkmate, I guess. But all of this hoopla, all of these statements, all of this frenzy and fretting over how Joker will play out. Oh my god, am I getting Ghostbusters 2016 flashbacks with regards to all of this for a movie that's... There are things I do genuinely like about this movie, but there's things that I don't necessarily feel work in its favor, and ultimately at the end of the day, I found myself kind of thinking like, what was the point of this exercise? And I find it kind of hilarious that a lot of hardcore fans are saying, well, okay, DC's finally got Marvel beat with regards to having a film that will have more of a historical and cultural impact over, you know, just having big box office. Quickly forgetting that The Dark Knight kind of cemented its claim on the historical and cultural impact to some degree. It's ironic because I left Joker kind of with the same feeling I leave a lot of Marvel movies anyways, which is, yeah, there's stuff that worked, there's stuff that didn't. Okay, it's fine. And I know I said I would stop doing video logs on movies that are just, it's fine. But because there's so much fever and fervor around this film, you know what? What the hell? I'll talk about an it's fine movie and point out its highlights and its significant deficits. Let's talk about the pros. Joaquin Phoenix is without a doubt the glue that holds all of this together. Joker, Arthur Fleck, whatever you want to call him, he's on screen for pretty much 99% of the film. There's one point in the movie, the story takes a detour from him for about 45 seconds. Throughout this entire movie, you're never without Arthur. And that can be a huge responsibility on your lead to have to rise to meet. And Joaquin does it well. He is very hypnotic to watch. in this movie. His choices, some might construe as being like, acting, look at me taking chances, but with regards to what he's trying to develop with this particular character, I feel like they were the right choices to make. He is twitchy, he's sullen, this just sad sack of a character who, when you see him, when he laughs, and his laugh is a great laugh for this type of Joker, it physically hurts him because he can't control it, because it isn't something that he initially derives pleasure from, that he initially doesn't embrace. And he sells you on that idea that laughing to him is like the worst thing possible that can happen, because the character suffers from this condition where he laughs involuntarily whenever, he's stressed or whenever he's agitated. That's his tic. That's his response. It's like some form of Tourette's that he can't control. When he finally comes alive as, his evolved version of his Joker persona, he does that very well. He is disturbing. He is unsettling. And you do get a sense at that point of how much he revels in being twisted. Grade A performance in a C grade movie. I'll come back to this again, but I feel that's why the movie was made. Was for, we're gonna get a Best Actor nomination, if not the win. Cinematography wise, set design wise, this film is very well executed. It is harkening back. It's trying to emulate a lot of the style of films from around that time that talked about that particular time. Again, Taxi Driver, King of Comedy, and it's a faithful kind of homage to that type of movie. Gotham City in 1981 is looking particularly downtrodden, grimy, gristled, a lot of vibrant colors when things need to be vibrant or chaotic, but for the most part, you just get this washed out sense of dilapidation and decay, and that works for this particular DC movie. Not so much for a Man of Steel or a Dawn of Justice, but for a story that features Joker as your main character, that's a good aesthetic choice to go with. So bravo on your cinematography, color palettes, and set design. So here's where I start to get distracted by questions regarding the film, such as, what's the point? And ultimately, does that point come through? Well, when it comes to what the point is, I'm not entirely sure what this movie wants to talk about when it comes to the character of the Joker. It's supposed to be this very gritty, realistic take on the character, provide a different type of origin story for why he became what he is. I've heard people talk about how this is a morality tale regarding class warfare, regarding mental health and the state of mental health in America today. People want so badly to bring up the alt-right incel rallying cry that this film supposedly represents. I personally don't believe it's trying to do that, because it makes its main character look like a sad sack of a loser. So that's some rallying cry for them incels. And at no point do I feel does the film ever really justify its character's motivation or actions that he takes. And here's where we're gonna get into the controversy, the problematic material. I felt it never really struck out on its own with its own kind of point to get across. Because like I said, it's got a lot to choose from. The class warfare, the violence in society, the state of mental health. And it never settles on a direction because it's not really sure of any of those directions. Joker killing people in this movie, I mean, he's the Joker. I don't know what else you were expecting from him. It's not the Cesar Romero Joker where he's gonna gas someone with laughing gas and they're just gonna have giggle fits for the rest of the day. It's not that type of kiddie Joker. This movie's an R for a reason. It's about the Joker that will go into uncomfortable places when it comes to violence and moral depravity. Not tame on the violence, for sure, but in terms of the moral depravity, other than him just being very, very unhinged and violent. It never goes into anything that I would perceive as being uncomfortable for an audience these days. I've seen a Serbian film. It takes a lot to shock and offend me these days. If this is what Todd Phillips was gunning for with his statements and being like, oh, you'll never see a film like Joker again, I'll see a film like Joker again, because this film gets made all the time with regards to its level of violence and with regards to its level of edge. So on that front, nothing surprised me. Nothing blew away my expectations with regards to, oh my god, I can't believe they did that. With regards to kind of the grotesqueness and the horror, it's trying for it, certainly. Joaquin is trying to pour everything he can into his characterization effectively enough, but nothing that's going to transcend my boundary of, ugh, this Joker gives me chills. So with regards to genuine horrific moments, I didn't really get that out of this movie either. And it didn't help that my audience was more on the DC fanboy side of things, where even if the scene was supposed to produce maybe a genuine sense of dread or terror, you don't feel it because the audience that you're sitting with is like, yes, that's what I'm talking about. There's a particular scene towards the end of the film. You might call it the definitive Joker transformation moment. And I'm sure there's hundreds and hundreds of cell phone cam clips of it. During that moment of what I'm sure is supposed to be this character-defining linchpin of where I'm gathering you're supposed to feel a sense of like, he's not coming back. Arthur Fleck is gone. It's only Joker now. And you're supposed to feel kind of that sunken feeling, seeing someone become just fully depraved and evil at that point. Let me tell you, nothing undercuts the tonal balance of that more so than people next to you and behind you going, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I've always been of the mindset that, like, you can enjoy Joker performances, but not to the point where you're supposed to be, like, looking to them as some sort of, like, heroic figurehead, even in their own movie. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Mark Hamill's Joker. It's a great performance. He injects a lot of energy into it. At no point in Batman Beyond Return of the Joker do I ever genuinely like the character, because he's a villain. And you can enjoy villains for being villainous, but at the same time recognize kind of instinctually deep down that what they're doing is kind of messed up. And so when that moment came in this movie, and my theater didn't erupt in applause, but there was quite a few folks around me who, like I said, seemed to be reveling in this transformation for the wrong reasons. At least from my perspective, I was kind of like, all right, yeah, it's a comic book movie still. I feel like that might be the reason why a lot of these points that perhaps Phillips and company were intentionally trying to make with the film aren't able to come across as strongly or as focused as they could have, because of the fact that it's attached to a comic book IP that is globally recognizable and globally accepted. If this had been about any other original character or even a lesser known type of fictional character, maybe they could have set a course on if they wanted to seriously address class warfare in this world, or if they seriously wanted to address the state of mental health services or things of that nature. But because it is about a character who, like I said, gets global recognition, is kind of known for being the embodiment of random chaos and violence, and is also a very larger-than-life character on a lot of different levels, they couldn't, I feel, invest too much into this bleak, grounded reality they were striving so hard for. Let's bring Joker into the real world lens. They fall kind of short on that, in my opinion. And it makes itself known through many different choices throughout the film. One is the love interest. I'm doing this a lot, I'm sorry. Played by Zazie Beetz, Domino from Deadpool 2. She does really well with the little that they give her, because, like I said, this movie follows Arthur around for its full runtime almost. And you never really see her on her own, which, you know, is the point of the film. You're not supposed to see her on her own. You're supposed to see kind of like how Arthur perceives her, his kind of response to her presence, and his interactions with her. And that's fine. But it telegraphed what I'm not sure they wanted it to be a twist, or if they're like, throw it in there because other movies have done this. From kind of frame one, when they first meet, I'm like, I see where this is going, because something about Joaquin Phoenix shifts automatically that didn't seem natural. Now that was the one thing, is that it was a choice on his part to do kind of this shift in his acting and delivery when he's around her, and it didn't feel like the rest of his performance. And there's a good reason for that. When you have a main character who, right out of the gate, you see has a plethora of delusions at his disposal whenever he starts to act out of the character that you see in the everyday life. Yeah, it's a safe bet that things aren't always what they seem. And there's something they could have done with that a little bit more, I feel. And maybe they are trying to do it, but it's not a concrete choice. He's an unreliable narrator because you see he has delusions. Because you see sort of like how the film and how the camera works around him, that perhaps this is kind of his own self-esteem issues coming to the surface, or his own like self-image, how he perceives himself. I don't know. In the second half of the film, it feels like a lot of that gets kind of put by the wayside for the sake of like, we just got to get him to becoming Joker now. Like full-on Joker. We need to get him to that point. At no point up until like the last scene of the film did I feel like, oh, okay, it's questionable as to what actually happened or not. In other words, they wanted their Travis Bickle ending, but didn't know how to go about it. And again, here's where I'm coming back to. This movie knows what it wants to do because it's seen it been done in other movies. It just never fully delivers on that promise, or never picks a solid direction. It's got its own kind of you talking to me moment with Arthur flailing around with a gun. It's not a funny movie too much. There are two moments where I genuinely laughed. One is kind of the punchline that comes with his Travis Bickle you talking to me moment. That was kind of fun just because that did take me by surprise a little bit. The second moment, and I attribute this more to a little bit of Todd Phillips' darker humor coming out, is what happens when Joker kills his not his third person, because there's 3 yuppies on the train. His 1, 2, 3, 4. His 5th person, let's say. A former work associate who kind of sends him up the river earlier in the film. He kills that guy, and then the person he's with tries to make a break for it, which results in a pretty funny sight gag that I felt bad about laughing about, and I'm like, there's that Todd Phillips humor right there for that brief moment. There are certain stylistic choices where, for the sake of the plot and things like that, I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. You're obsessed with Robert De Niro's character. Yeah. I remember Jerry Langford as well. His fixation on Thomas Wayne, which they do try to build up to be a little bit something more here, and it is an interesting idea to toy with. I kind of wish they delved into a little bit more with regards to Arthur and his connection to the Wayne family. And I might as well throw this out there too. The one time the movie deviates from Arthur, it involves the Waynes. I don't think I'm throwing many spoilers out there, but when you've got Thomas Wayne, Martha Wayne, and a young Bruce Wayne in the movie, gee, I wonder if they're going to live happily ever after in the end. Oh, a fun little fact I found out later is that the kid who plays young Bruce Wayne in this movie actually played young Joaquin Phoenix in You Were Never Really Here. So, the more you know. But overall, it was a lot of these kind of starting of interesting ideas, but never fully kind of delivering on it, or never at least like, I don't know, committing a little bit more. This movie is, in my opinion, relatively tame. Like I said, I've seen a lot more offensive and horrific stuff in other films, Hereditary outclasses this movie by a fucking mile when it comes to its level of discomfort and unsettling ideas. Wasn't really horrified by anything in this film. Again, the only things I can really appreciate from it were the way the world was kind of designed and set up and shot, and Joaquin's performance. And by the way, what rich Wall Street assholes who are drunk off of too much, I don't know, schnapps, riding a dingy subway would know all the lyrics to Send in the Clowns? Fill me in, people who actually remember the late 70s. Were you all just walking around reciting Sondheim lyrics, willy-nilly? Because if so, then I'll shut up. Joker just kind of left me with a, okay, I saw it. I don't feel worse off or better off for having seen it. I saw it. Will I revisit it at some point? Probably. I mean, I do like the performance of Joaquin. I do like the stylistic choices that are taken at times. There are some character beats in this movie that I like. Like I mentioned before, the fact that laughter looks unbelievably uncomfortable for this character. Overall, what I just kind of left the theater feeling was, I don't know what you're trying to get across here with the movie, if there was a solid point to begin with, unless the point was, hey, let's follow this unreliable narrator for a couple of hours and see what happens. In which case, if that was a point, mission accomplished, team, I guess. I kind of feel like everyone's sort of made up their minds if they're gonna watch this movie or not. I'll have more video essays soon. I'll definitely have more to talk about then. Why so serious?